Well, 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 it hasn't been too long since we told you that the Solomon Islands will be playing against Malaysia in the June international break. But potentially more excitingly is Singapore's doubleheader against OFC sides as they, on the 15th of June, play Papua New Guinea, a very exciting fixture, and then they too play the Solomon Islands on the 18th of June. So Solomon Islands with two quite challenging fixtures away in Asia, and Papua New Guinea getting in on the action as well. Of course, part of this, all the build up to lots of stuff going on in Asia, as there always is, but of course the Pacific Games as well for those OFC nations.
Yes.
Ryan, we've touched on Solomon Islands in a number of videos, but let's start with Papua New Guinea. How important do you think it is for them to be playing these kind of fixtures?
It is very important, mate. It's very, very important. It's not something they do very, very often. When we spoke on the last video about the Solomon Islands and their trip over to Malaysia, we spoke about how they've done it in the past and they went over there as recent as 2019. Of course, there's been 4 years between now and then for them to make that trip. For Papua New Guinea, they've not played Singapore since 2014. So we're coming up to it's over 9 years since they last played Singapore. I should have done more research because I don't know when they actually ventured, when sort of their most recent time that they actually ventured outside of Oceania to play a team from non-OFC. Obviously, they went to Qatar for the World Cup qualifiers. But it's very, very important. What's interesting, mate, is you touched on something, and I'm not sure you're aware. So we're going to touch quickly on Singapore, who have got a doubleheader against Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands. You mentioned also that the Solomon Islands have got a game against Malaysia across that June international break. Did you know that Malaysia also will play Papua New Guinea in that international break as well?
I did not know that. So Papua New Guinea,
So,
a double header for them too.
so it's a really nice quartet of games. So you've got Papua New Guinea, as you said, that play Singapore. Fantastic looking fixture. Great for them to play against Singapore again on the 15th of June. On the 20th of June, they then travel to Malaysia for their second friendly as part of the June international break. So you've got Solomon Islands that play Malaysia on the 14th of June before heading to Singapore for their friendly on the 18th. And then it's kind of Papua New Guinea is sort of playing that, but in opposite. So great, mate. Fantastic. We always talk about how we love the Oceania teams and how we always want them to go and play more games and play different teams. And they're doing exactly that, actually. So I don't know. They must be subbed to the channel. I don't know. They must be. But it's super. It's super. It's so cool. As I said, mate, Papua New Guinea haven't played Singapore since the 6th of September 2014. They lost that game 2-1. Wonder how they get on this time. And then if we think about the other side, the other Oceania team making that trip, Solomon Islands, they've not played Singapore since 2014. Sorry, not 2014, 2019, where they lost 4-3. Interesting, some of the scorers for the Solomon Islands that day, names that we know and love: Feni, Abba, and Tutori in that 4-3 defeat. Great games and just a great prospect for the June international break, mate. How do we think they're going to get on these sides?
You know, it's one of those weird ones where I think that, in the back of my mind, I strangely think that PNG will do better against Malaysia than they will against Singapore. I think that one thing that's always quite apparent, the same difference between Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea exists between Singapore and Malaysia, in that Malaysia are better technically at football than Singapore are. But Singapore, as you see quite a lot in kind of ASEAN tournaments, they're quite physically strong for a side in that region. They've got a number of players. Yeah, they've got a number of players around, above the 6 foot mark, which is something that you don't see that often. Certainly, I've got to be careful with my words here, certainly from players born in the region and that are actually from the region. It will certainly be interesting to see in these friendlies how many players from particularly Malaysia, because they arguably do it a little bit more than Singapore and maybe even a little bit less than other sides like Indonesia. How many players are kind of actually from the region, or how many players have been nationalised? I mean, we've seen players like Sergio Aguero and Lee Tuck play for Malaysia. It will be interesting to see if they play again, or if it will be some of the other players like Rashid, like Safawi, to see if those players play in those games. I think I'd be surprised if PNG won. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just feel that Singapore and Malaysia are both probably a little bit better than them. But I think it would be really interesting with the Solomon Islands, because since 2019 that squad's changed quite a lot, and they've got a lot of good players now. They've got obviously Rafa Liai, who is like a proper legit talent, like playing in Europe. And then you've got players like Michael Alafa, who again are achieving he's just turned 32, I believe. He's still a very, very good player. And their whole squad is very different now, but it's very, very good. So I think that Solomon Islands potentially could even go one better than they did against Singapore, and maybe even beat them. What about you?
Yeah. No, I think that's good. Good analysis as always, my friend. Good analysis as always. Also, love the fact that you're attuned to Michael Alar for the Solomon Islands international footballer's birthday. Rafa Liai scored, didn't he? His first ever professional goal in Europe for what they called Velez Star or something. I can't remember what they're called.
You've done pretty well there, yeah.
I think the Solomon. I agree with everything about PNG. They're more solid. Kind of more sort of set up to be defensive. How will they find the contest against Singapore and Malaysia? I think they might struggle, but I think it'll be a great experience for them. We'll see how we go. Love to be proved wrong. For Solomon Islands, I think that they could have this could be tasty, mate. The Solomon Islands Malaysia game could be super, super tasty. Fast, technical players on that big pitch at the Bakut Jalil. I'm on a website here, sportsmole.co.uk. Weird plug, I know, but the only reason it's because it's got some stats around Singapore and the Solomon Islands game, and it's giving Solomon Islands a 21.86% chance to win, with a 24.21% chance of a draw. And Singapore, it says I've got a 54, just shy of 54% chance to win. I don't know. I don't see it like that, mate. I think the Solomon Islands could maybe get something in there. But again, you mentioned the physicality of Singapore, and you that could come up trumps. I guess if we're predicting things, which we're kind of not, PNG to sort of take a lot from the games, but maybe not get the results that they'd want. I think the Solomon Islands will enjoy their time over there and get a couple of results, whether that's a draw against Singapore and a draw against Malaysia, or an narrow defeat to Malaysia, that kind of thing. That's how I see it going, mate. The important thing is these guys are getting these kind of games, and we get to watch them.
100%. That's absolutely right, and that's a little bit of kind of what D&Q is all about, really. We're not saying that. I mean, all of these sides are arguably, minnows, some more than others, but it's definitely a case of sides from other regions playing against each other is what we want to see. It's what the fans want to see. It's what everyone wants to see. Is these games happening more and more regularly. We do not need to see Malaysia playing Thailand again. We don't need to see it. And so to see them play against PNG and against the Solomon Islands, and the same for Singapore as well, is absolutely fantastic. We've given a little flavour, a little sparkling of some of our predictions. We know we have some subscribers from those different areas. How do you think the results will go? Who are you backing to be the surprise package in this quartet of international friendlies? Thanks so much for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time. Well. Not. Oh, that's terrible.
Keep it in. That's good. It's very good.
No, the well. No. We need to actually do a separate blooper reel.